Meanwhile, the Russian embassy in Nigeria has denied any involvement in the usage of the European nation's flag by some persons during the End Bad Governance protest. But the country's embassy in a statement said neither the Russian government nor its officials are involved in the protesters' activities. The embassy attributed the use of Russian symbols by the protesters to personal choices, saying it does not reflect any official policy opposition of the Russian government. It also expressed respect for Nigeria's democratic processes, acknowledging peaceful demonstrations as a legitimate expression of democracy. The embassy, however, condemned any potential disruptions or acts of violence that might arise from these events. And now to discuss all this, I'm being joined by a public affairs analyst, Dotun Ojon. Thank you so much, Dotun, for joining us to talk about this.
It's a pleasure always.
Now, the handling of the ongoing protest seems to have taken a new dimension, with security operatives telling the journalists not to interview the protesters while even failing to provide protection for them against hoodlums, despite being present. So what precedent is this? What kind of precedent is being set?
Okay. In a community like ours, there are two things that we can actually rely on. We can rely on philosophy, and we can also rely on history. Philosophically, we have seen that government in Africa always have issues with response. And like a philosopher said, the matter is not the matter. The matter is how you respond to the matter. And we can trace back history. One of the reasons or lessons that we should have learned from the 2020 EndSARS protest is the fact that the protest was orderly, and you can mention a lot of names, big names across our communities were actually part of the protest initially, even with some state governors coming out to support the protester. That's in 2020. But you know that immediately the government responded the way it responded, it led to the kind of crisis that anybody would not pray for in the future. It's the same thing we are having. It's usually about how you respond to issue. And one of the reasons why they respond the way they respond is that opposition in Africa is enmity. Anytime in our democratic practice in Africa, anytime you hear opposition in the head of those people in power, it actually means that it's enmity. So when people say they want to protest, in the reasoning of leadership, it means that my enemies are coming, and they have to do everything possible to either stop the enemy or to tame the enemy. And this has been our practice over the time. And that's why you see that when issues like this happen, instead of engagement, what the people used to do, what leadership usually do in this part of the world is to declare war on them. And we've always seen that this usually does not resort to something that is palatable.
Okay.
And that's the situation that we've always had.
Dotun, let's equally tie all this you said to the fact that even our reporters were manhandled at Ojota today, and we even had the same scenario play out in Abuja too, where reporters were attacked alongside demonstrators without caution while even documenting the events. In about 30 seconds, I'd like to find out, is this some sort of social oppression, or, how do we even describe this in a democratic setting?
Okay, it's not just about whatever action you see, it's a representation of the thinking pattern of leadership. The thinking pattern of leadership at this moment is do not give the protesters voice. And once you get to this point of trying to quench, quote unquote, the voice of the protesters, you see that the immediate victim will be the journalist. And once the journalist is harassed, once the journalist is afraid to cover, you discover that whatever leadership we now do at the end of the day will not be able to make it to the pages of newspaper.
Okay,
it's
Dotun,
all part of the strategy.
Dotun, you are going to tell us more about this, but then let's just let you go, all right? We are going to visit this particular topic maybe some other time and talk more about this and how it affects countries like this that have democratic governance and power. But then we appreciate your contribution so far.